All right, all right, all right. It looks like we're live. It looks like we're live on some channels. We're waiting for two more channels to come in. But oh my goodness, if you can hear me, let me tell you about something new that has happened with the last Google update. Now, I haven't researched it all, but I tell you what it did do is it made it take 18 minutes for me to be able to log into my broadcast, actually longer than that, because I was 10 minutes early trying to get everything set up. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know all the details. All I know is that Google, the new updated Chrome, introduced something called Smart Cam, and it locked me out of my stream. So, hey, I'm gonna have to do some more research on that. But if you're having trouble and you've got like a Norton or something, make sure you log in early enough to approve all the approves and click all the clicks and do all the things so you can do what you want to do. All right, all right. Hey y'all, hey, it's JJ Conway. I want to welcome you to our fourth Thursday of the month. Our fourth Thursday is our Empowered Entrepreneur. It's how to become the person that has the things you want to do, be, and have. So I'm excited about today's lesson. But before I get into it, I want to give you a heads up, especially if you're in rural areas like where I live in Stephenville, Texas, Erath County, Texas. Um, and there's a whole lot of rigmarole with the new FAFSA, and it can mess you up. So while I would normally save something like this for Wealth Building Wednesday, I don't want to wait a whole week to get back to it, and I want to get you the information today. Okay. And so now, before I get into what happened and why I call it a FAFSA disaster and how it's made it tougher for Americans, especially Texans in rural areas like Erath County, to be awarded federal student aid, let me tell you why it's so important to me to reduce the amount of student loans that are taken by rural Texans. All right. So, according to census.gov, now look. With anything that I do, I always want you to go look it up. All right. Trust, but verify. You don't believe me? That's cool too. Do your own research. I mean, even if you do believe me, I'm always going to encourage you to do your own research and see for yourself. Don't just listen to what they say on TV. Any PR or marketing firm knows that every channel tailors its content to a certain demographic. And also, we've covered this before on this show, how even Google only returns results based on what you liked last time. So you and I could search the same thing and you'll get different results than me. We get served different news online. We get different pricing on Amazon, and the dynamic nature of our information streams, y'all, that's only going to keep increasing because it's so profitable. So I can't trust the news anchors and the pundits. I went straight to the sources. All right. And that's what I want you to do. That's what you got to do if you want to make sure that you have a firm foundation for your convictions. So why does this FAFSA thing bother me so bad? Well, according to census.gov, we got 43,000-ish people in Erath County. All right. Per capita income for the last 12 months is $28,000. $28,000. That's just over $2,000 a month. Now, look, some of you living in some high cost of living areas, you've wasted $2,000 a month on extra shopping or get rich quick schemes or eating out. I mean, $2,000 a month. Now, you might think because this is a college town that this is skewed by all the students, but actually, for the census purposes, it says that they are counted with their home of record, not the college. So, in this post pandemic era of rising food, gas, living expenses, median home cost in 2020 was $166,000. Now, the census site hasn't updated yet, but looking at realtor.com out here, it's like the average home in Erath County is inching up closer to $300,000 for a standard 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. Comptroller Texas website says that 52% of Texans have student loan debt compared with the national average of 13.5%. And the county I live in now has 20% more people below poverty line than national average of people who are below the poverty level. Mom and dad work hard, give their kid a better life, and then they took out Parent Plus loans, and then the pandemic hit, and people got fired. And yeah, they put loans on a break for a little bit, but now what? Comptroller site says 52% of student debt averaging 26K per person, and that most of this student loan debt is held by 35 to 49-year-olds. Now stop and think about this for a second. Stop and think. How long is somebody who only makes $28,000, $30,000 a year going to take to pay off $26,000 of loans? In their 40s. And if these people don't pay their loans, I mean, did you hear what I said? These are 35 to 49-year-olds. These are not kids. Who's going to take care of them in their old age? They can't buy a house. They can't save a retirement. Who's going to take care of them? Your taxes and mine are going to take care of this problem unless we revitalize our communities with solid financial principles to reverse this mess. All right? So this is why I'm so upset with these new changes in FAFSA and how they apply, especially to agricultural families. It's a FAFSA disaster looming over our heads because these changes make it harder for students living on ranches, farms, dairies to get federal aid. And it also hits the single struggling mom because now child support counts. Now, I would like for them to do like a projected child support. Never mind. I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not going to go down that road because you and I both know that even if somebody got child support last month, they ain't getting it. They may not get it. It's possible they will not get it next month. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. The new SAVE program that just rolled out tries to address this by increasing the income exemption from 150% to 225% of the poverty line, right? So you can get more details on all of that at studentaid.gov. Okay, that's the same place you file the FAFSA property and you can file it, and you can get your property, all that stuff, guideline amount, all that stuff. You know, I just realized for some of you don't even know what I'm talking about. Okay, let me back that truck up, beep, beep. Okay, the FAFSA. Oh, I should have remembered what it stands for. It's the federal aid for students who go to college. If somebody knows what FAFSA actually stands for, please drop it in the chat. It's like federal aid for students. I don't know what the last A is, but if you know what it stands for, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Basically, layperson's terms, put the cookies on the bottom shelf. FAFSA is the form you got to fill out if you want student aid. And even if you're not trying to take student loans, even if you are financially able to cash flow your students' college education, many colleges use this form in their calculations of other things like what they're going to offer the child, what kind of packages they're going to offer, any kind of additional scholarships, grants, work study programs. Personally, I think a young person should work through college. Now, if they're a paid athlete and their job is to keep their body together and work out so they can do what the school's paying them to do, well, that's different. But I think that, young people should have some kind of work study environment. And guess what? Some of these kids aren't getting a job unless it's through the college. But then you can't prove that they need that level of responsibility and experience unless you file the FAFSA, even if you don't plan on taking out a parent loan. And I hope most of my listeners aren't planning on taking out any student loans. Okay. So you need the form, and the form has made it difficult. I'm going to explain how in just a second, okay? But I just want to walk you through an example, okay? So a single person making less than $32,800 doesn't have to pay, okay? The cutoff for a family of 4 is $67,000. So the good news is, if the program really does, I got ahead of myself because I got distracted. I didn't tell you what FAFSA is. So when it comes to this whole SAVE program, okay, let me go back to that, okay? They are trying to increase the income exemption to help people not have to pay as much, or below the certain poverty line, then you get certain grants where you won't have to pay, okay? We're not, okay? So the good news is, if the program really does what it says it's going to do, and we all know how good the government is about doing what they're going to say they're going to do, that'll eliminate interest accrued over the payment calculation, so your loan balance doesn't grow. Okay, so if you're below a certain amount, you don't have to pay for now, and if you are a certain, whatever amount you're at, if the loan interest on your loan every month goes over what they calculate you got to pay, then they waive that. Now, how that all plays out in the long term, I don't know. How long financial institutions are going to be on board around that, I don't know. It could be people think that this is a good thing, but I'm a little concerned that you're going to see a move to more privatized loans with lending institutions not being backed by the government. And then you're going to end up having these other issues because who wants to lose money, right? Now, I am not a banking student loan expert. I'm going to tell you that right now. I do know somebody who is, and I can forward you to her if you want more information. Just drop it in the chat, and I'll connect you with her. All right. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see how this is going to play out with the privatized loans, and I'm curious to see how this is going to work with the unsubsidized loans, which traditionally have had no those are the privatized loans that have had no regulations and just could do what they want with the borrowers. And so I would like to actually see, is the government going to put their money where their mouth is? Or more realistically, are they going to put our money where their mouth is, right? Because, I mean, the way I figure is they waste so much of our tax dollars on port projects anyway. I'd rather our tax dollars go to relieve the financial pressure on those vulnerable populations who took on these predatory student loans. Our country sold them an American dream at 30%, at 36%, 46%. I had one person, 46% interest. And it didn't take long for that dream to turn into a nightmare. And so that's why, if you do go out to Bureau of Statistics, no, is it Bureau of Statistics? Y'all, I should have wrote it down. But one of our governmental websites shows you that Black and brown wealth is declining from generation to generation. All right. And these changes to the FAFSA are hitting the hardest to some of our hardest working Americans. Okay, so what are the changes we need to be aware of? Okay, studentaid.gov lists the changes, but they're real vague on what the changes mean for you. So some of this information comes from college reps that wish to remain off record. All right, so I'm going to list first the changes that affect everyone and then focus on why the new FAFSA is a disaster for rural Americans. The first change, by now, those of you who care about the FAFSA form, you now know it launched in December. And actually, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think they call it a soft launch. Me and my son went through and filled it out, and then the next week we went to log in and see what the progress was. And don't you know, it was the 2023 to 2024 form. Now, it didn't say 2023 to 2024 form when we clicked the link. And I remember saying to my son, it says 24-25 at the top, but it's asking for our 2021 income tax info. I don't know what's going on here. Well, I had forgotten that it was actually in beta. And so it's not going to stay that way. All right. But, due to football season, we weren't going to get it done earlier anyway. So I'm really not mad about that change. Okay, so if you didn't fill it out yet, you're not that far behind the power curve. It's soft launched in December. They had a lot of tweaks and a lot of mess ups, and now they relaunched it again earlier this month. Okay, so in future years, it'll go back to 1 October. Second change everybody needs to be aware of. Anybody listed as a contributor has to sign, but both parents don't have to sign, just the one giving them access to the tax record. Now, signing the form does not mean you have to pay anything that you didn't agree to, okay? But they're trying to make sure, look, the government is trying to make it real easy to take your money. See, they're telling you how they're helping you out, but look at what they have done to make it easier for them to take your money. Keep an eye out, because these programs can be very beneficial in uplifting some people. But if you are not careful, that carrot of a college education could lead you down a rabbit hole of death, in that you will hamstring yourself in the future. All right. Change number 3 that everybody needs to be aware of, and that applies to everyone. Both the student and contributors have to sign the form, or the student will not be eligible for federally backed aid, including grants and scholarships. And you can't just act like your parents don't exist. They got an infographic, y'all, kind of made my head hurt. I'm like, they need to redesign that thing, because infographic, you expect more pictures than words, right? But they have an they have an infographic that explains who is a contributor. So make sure you check that out before trying to front that your parent isn't really your parent. All right. Remember, if they file taxes and get that child credit, you are listed on their tax form. Change number 4, you can't even get to the form now without a FAFSA ID. And if you're like me and you like to hurry up and get tasks done in one setting, oh, you better slow your roll on this one, because it can take up to 3 days to get your social security number approved from an account for an account. Ask me how I know. And if you have any discrepancies between your social and the account and the email that the student put in, that's another 3 days, baby. So don't wait till the last minute on this, all right? And don't expect you're going to sit down and do it all in one sitting, unless you already have that FAFSA ID, which is a new thing, which is a new requirement in order to even access the form, all right? I think you've always had one. I don't know, because I've never had to do the form until this year. All right, number 5 in the FAFSA changes you need to know about. Other changes include changing the names of some documents, reports, happy to glads. And you know what? I bet somebody got promoted over that, but that's not a big deal for today. So let me give you change number 6, the one that I like. Okay, change number 6. They cut the size of the form, y'all, from 108 questions down to 46. And when my son and I filled this out, that site was, I told you, we knew, look, we know how to read. We're not going to college because we don't know how to read. We clicked the 24 to 25 school year, but it took us to the 23 to 24 form because it was still in beta and it was still testing. And let me tell you, that form was tedious. The new form is much quicker. And part of that's because they take out a lot of the questions and the parent answers them, but it's also because now that they verified our social security numbers before we can even access the form, they already got the data they need. Okay, and so the parent answers a lot of the IRS questions on their login now instead of the student. Change number 7 with the FAFSA form that you need to know about. They've expanded the eligibility for Pell Grants by increasing the poverty line thresholds for students in single-parent households. Now, we talked a little bit about that earlier. Studentaid.gov they don't say definitively, but they give you a highlight of an example of a possibility that for the 24 to 25 school year, an additional 600,000 students will qualify for Pell Grants, and an additional 1.5 million students will qualify for the max. So more aid is coming for some people. Of course, you probably already know my opinion on what happens when the government gives more people more money. Prices go up. So we'll see how this plays out. But I'm personally, I'm not gonna bet the farm on it, even if I was a betting lady. But I'm just kind of concerned that this is gonna go the way of school vouchers, that it's gonna go the way of living wage. Like, oh, we want to make $20 an hour at McDonald's. Well, guess what? How much the prices went up to accommodate your new salary. Oh, we want to have school vouchers and want to put our poopy doos in better schools. And look, y'all, I was an advocate for school vouchers in the neighborhood that I lived in where we enacted it, until I saw it play out. And all it did was raise the prices. So you didn't get better schools for your kids. All you got was higher prices. And so the people that had the vouchers still couldn't get into the schools they wanted, or the schools they finally got into, the kids who could afford more paid more for another school. Anyhow, that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the FAFSA form. So let me get back to that. All right. Change number 8. Finally, the biggest concern to me out of all the changes they've announced thus far is that the formula used to determine your financial aid eligibility is changing. And guess what? They are not very transparent about it. You will now be assigned a student aid index. It's an index number calculated using the information provided by the student and the contributors on the FAFSA form. Your SAI can range anywhere from negative 1,500, in which case you're probably getting the full Pell Grant, right, to 999,999. So just short of $1 million, right? Now note, It is not a dollar amount. That's what they say. I mean, we don't know how that's going to play out. But the SAI replaces the expected family contribution, EFC, starting this school year, the 24 to 25 award year. And so nobody was really clear on what goes into this number. Why did I care about this number? And why did I discover all these things I'm sharing with you? Because when we went through and filled out the form, that number was real high. And I was like, that doesn't even make any sense considering the fact that I'm fully retired, you know? So, did I mention? Yes. Let me go back. Yeah. Well, guess what? I think I mentioned child support's going to cap. Yay, single moms, those in blended families doing the best they can with what little they get. Never mind the fact that for many kids, child support doesn't continue past high school graduation. My son stopped after he turned 18. Now, look, I had hoped that his bio dad would not have read the divorce decree and would have kept it going till graduation. But no. People will read when they want to read. So it won't apply for my child. But you know what I had to do? I had to put last year's child support on the form. And honestly, it shouldn't apply, because if they really wanted to ask about child support, they should ask about how much you expect to get next year. Now, up until now, child support has not been taxable. And because it's not a tax deduction for the parent that sent it, okay? So it's not a deduction. It's not taxable. It's not a deduction, okay? They paid taxes on that. The parent who paid it, wait, did I not say that right? It hasn't, okay. Child support received has not been taxable because the parent who's paying the child support already paid taxes on it. They don't get a deduction for child support. They get a deduction for alimony unless that's changed. I'm not a CPA and I haven't asked my CPA because I've never gotten alimony. All right. But unless something's changed, they don't get a tax deduction for the child support. So the receiving parent doesn't have to pay taxes on it. Now, I know, and you know, they have no way of knowing if I told the truth about how much child support I received last year, but I'm not going to lose my Holy Ghost and anointing lying about that money. All right. But I think that's a big change. And I think that's a faulty change. I mean, many single moms out there or people in blended families, they're not even getting enough child support to even help with the family and even help cover the costs of rearing that child. And I think this is ridiculous because, you know, especially since I find more moms are the full-time caregiver than more dads are. Basically, what you've done is you have transferred the burden to somebody who's already marginalized, already vulnerable, already struggling in most cases. All right, some more changes for the calculation that might spell trouble for our middle class families is that the number of family members in college is no longer factored in. So what that means is even though you still got to provide the info, they're not going to give more aid to each student just because he or she has a sibling in college. So the way it used to be is if you had two kids in at the same time, they cut your expected family contribution in half. That loophole has been shut down. And starting this year, families with an adjusted gross income, that's an AGI, if you see that on your tax form, of greater than $60,000 are going to have to report asset income in the calculation. And wow, y'all, I was reading out through this thing. They really set out to capture way more assets as much as they can. And the biggest change that really hits hard for rural Texas families, hardworking Americans in rural communities all across America on ranches and farms and dairies is that family farms and small businesses will now count as assets, with the net worth of the businesses and the farms of any size included. When my son and I accidentally filled out last year's FAFSA form, I was elated that since my business had less than 100 employees, my 2021 profit, which was quite high, didn't count. But now it all counts. Like, I have been so mad that my business made no money, not enough money. It made some money, but not enough money, and barely enough to break even because of all the craziness that happened with the accidents and the deaths in the family and everything. And then I made the conscious choice to back off and fall so I could be present for my son for his football games. I think I missed a senior dinner and the last football game, the worst one to miss, right? But I made that decision. I knew my business wasn't going to make much money in fall. Okay. So but I didn't know all the craziness of spring was going to happen in summer. And so, I filled out the form and I was like, well, I guess there's a reason behind every trial, because if I wouldn't have wanted to have to report my 2021 numbers on this form. Now look, let me take it aside. I am joking just a little bit, okay? I'd rather go back to pulling 20 to 100K net profit every month and pay my child's college out of pocket than be broke and qualify for aid, okay? So don't hear what I'm not saying here. I'm not saying I want to stay poor so I can send my son to college with scholarships and less debt. Okay. No, 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 no. See, I hear a lot of people talk about staying in poverty so they don't trip certain lines that would require them to pay back loans, or so they don't trip certain lines that would require them to have to pay more tax, or they don't trip certain lines that would have to require fill in the blank thing that has them afraid. This is not about being afraid. Okay. I'd much rather pull in those numbers again. All right. But my business has very low overhead, low equipment, no employees, couple of contractors. If I made that kind of money, I could take the hit to send my child to college. Most businesses, according to the foundational book on business finance, Profit First, most healthy small businesses are operating at a 5 to 10% margin. And it's even worse for our agricultural companies. Have you seen the cost of ag equipment? And few businesses, not even just ag, but few businesses in general, have enough liquid assets or things that can be quickly liquidated to pay for college. So I just don't get this new guideline. And I hope that the public outroar will change this quickly. All right, hold on. Let's look at some numbers on this. According to an Iowa College Student Aid Commission study in 2022, the average farm family was expected to contribute around $8,000 to their college students' tuition. This figure would climb to $41,000 with the new guidelines. Rural students graduate from high school at higher rates than those in urban areas, but they're less likely to obtain a 2 or 4-year college degree. They don't need more barriers to attaining higher education. In a future world characterized by overpopulation and limited water supply, we need more farm and ranch family children to go to college. Now they do say that if the family farm includes your principal place of residence, then you'll subtract that net value of your home on the farm from the total net value of all farm assets, and that's the final value. So if you've got a ton of loans and such, well, nothing's really changed for you. But I'm a member of a group of agricultural families who've been toiling over the land to provide their family, and year after year, generation after generation, they have worked to get that land debt free. They have worked to pay off their equipment, and they have worked to operate their farm debt free. And if you've been toiling over the land, I mean, look, you know, when all the ice and the storms have been going on last week and the week before, if you live in the East Coast or you live some other place and the light goes out, you might have your your charcoal grill, or your fireplace that you can use to heat your house or things like that. That's great, right? But for the most part, people deal with whatever little issue like that and they roll over and go back to bed. But when you've got ice and things like that and you got animals, those animals, they don't wait to get fed. You still got to get up at 4:30 in the morning and go take care of those animals. Somebody still has to go take care of the farm, the ranch, and all the things. So in my mind, ever since moving to rural Texas, I have discovered that agricultural families are some of the hardest working in our nation, especially those who've worked to minimize debt, because it's difficult to minimize debt when you're in the agricultural setting, and you just don't have much in personal assets. Your land is paid off. Sure, your granddaddy worked hard to pay off that land, your parents worked hard to pay off that land, but now they're saying you got to sell off acreage or equipment to cover college. I personally feel like that's an outrage. I mean, I wouldn't even be so mad at that change, because that is what people do when they can't afford something, right? Like sell stuff and get an extra job. Like grandma used to say, there's a great place to go when you don't have any money: to work, right? But farming and ranching, those are full-time gigs. Like I said, you're up at 4 in the morning and you're not done till late at night, and you're still not done. It's really easy to sit in our big cities where we think food comes from the grocery store and be like, well, if it's that hard, find another job. But you know what? I kind of want the people who produce our food to stay in business. Yeah, I want that. And I kind of want their kids to go to college, especially those who major in ag science or food science or food transport science, because a nation that can't feed itself will soon be overtaken. Besides, I don't remember the presidents of Wells Fargo or Chase or Bank of America having to sell off their mansions or yachts or private jets when the government bailed out their banks. So if you're going to take care of the fat cats, how about you take care of the people who are producing the food you eat? How about you take care of the people who are the foundation of our country? All right, enough of that. Enough of that, y'all. Woo, you know what? I did not know that was going to turn into 30 minutes. That's like a whole episode. I thought that was just going to be a little intro. So if you're still with me, I'm so glad that you are hanging with me today. Okay, so I want to thank you for hanging out with me. And if you're listening as part of the podcast, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm excited to be back up and running again. And I'm not sure when it's going to be finalized, but we are in the process of rebranding. So bear with us, okay? You might hear differences in the you might hear differences in the name and the branding and all those things. And it's going to take a little bit of time for all the things to start flowing together the way we need to. But I realize it's the rebranding process is taking a lot longer than I thought. And we've got so much great content that I don't want to delay it. So all this content is going to help you raise the floor in 24. Okay. And so now, just before I talk about the actual empowered entrepreneur topic today, let me let you know about something. You see the link below my name. It says jjclink.com/group. Now, I haven't turned on my one-on-one coaching yet. If you're on my newsletter, you got a link tonight at the bottom that lets you get on the wait list. It lets you apply, and that puts you in the queue for me to evaluate when I do open up the one-on-one coaches. I'm slowly opening those up. Okay. I'm still honestly slogging. I am still slogging through the doctorate. I got to get this kid into college, plus healing up, and then all the things. You know how it goes, right? But I have brought back the group coaching. So every first Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central, that's noon Eastern, 10 a.m. Mountain, 9 a.m. Pacific, I will be live on Zoom to answer any question you have. You'll also get lesson drops on the weeks we don't meet. You'll get office hours. You'll get invitations to random recordings. Like if I recorded a course and something went wrong, then I do a random recording. And some of you on my mailing list, you're used to getting those random recordings. Well, some of you are going to stop getting those because we're going to move that over time. We're going to move that to the private coaching group. Okay. So all you got to do is to sign up, to go to jjclink.com/group, and then you can register for that. It will help you dump debt, build wealth, and prosper. Okay. Let me shift gears here a little bit and let me share with you a power principle that's going to open up new opportunities for you in 2024. And if you're just joining us, let me reintroduce myself. Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining me in this series. Tonight, we're going to be talking about power principles, creating a new learning model for achievement. I'm JJ Conway, speaker, trainer, coach, mentor, financial planner, pastor, wife, mom. Before I jump into the introduction and the first power principle of understanding, I want to say thank you. I want to thank you. I want to show gratitude to those who have helped me create this program. You know that old adage, right? Many hands make light work. So surely that was the case with the project of putting together these power principles over the last 2 years and bringing them to you today. I also want to express my gratitude to my mentors and my teachers along the way, because even if I'm not working with some of them anymore, the fact is they had a big impact in my life. So let me give a shout out to Rusty Hodges, my very first coach, Dr. Cheryl Wood, John. I'm stumbling over my words. I want to make sure I don't forget anybody. John C. Maxwell, Les Brown, they really poured into me. Paul Shealy, Dr. George Fraser, and many, many more. I think I shouldn't have tried to name people because then I probably have forgotten somebody. But I also want to specifically recognize my firstborn, Philip Wiggins, because without him, this series would be incomplete. So let's jump into it. Some of you may know a little bit about my background and some of you may not. So let me give you the top of the waves, all right? I was born in Wilkes-Barre, PA, Pennsylvania, but I grew up outside of PA as a military brat when my mom married my adoptive dad at age 1. I was raised as what we call a CNE churchgoer. You know, Christmas and Easter. I was raised in a lower middle class family, but since this is a positive series, I'm going to call it upper lower class. How about that? I was born with a lung defect and I was labeled slow in kindergarten. They told my parents if I worked hard enough, I could be a good janitor one day. And that label had me develop a learning model based on a lie. You know, I had a belief that was based on a lie. And, you know, here's something I've realized is very, very powerful. It is very possible in our lives to have a very real belief that's based on a lie. I had a belief that I didn't understand what was going on and that I didn't have the capacity to understand what was going on. And you know what? What do we do at that age? We rise to the expectations set before us. And then rather to work hard to understand what others did, I basically tuned out life and did my own thing. I missed so much because somebody said I couldn't understand. And I believed them. You know, I found out that on the playground of life, kids can be cruel. And for me, you know, I was labeled slow. And 5 and 6-year-old kids around the merry-go-round, they have a way of identifying any difference there is with anybody. All they got to do, really, like all they got to do is identify that your left nostril is bigger than your right nostril. And that's it. You know, one kid that comes up and says, "Wow, your left nostril is bigger than your right nostril." And then by the end of the day, they've taken that fact, they've rhymed it to your name, put it to music, and all the kids in school seem to know it. And in today's day and age, it's on TikTok, gone around the world before you can even pull it back. But for me, my difference was more profound. Even then, the pranks that came to highlight my ignorance and the chanting of "she's so stupid, she's so dumb," and other words about my mental ability that I will never utter from these lips. I've never understood why someone had to tell the other kids about those things, but that's what they seem to do. And I would have to go for special reading comprehension sessions in 2nd grade. And at first, y'all, I thought I was so special. I had a special teacher. And one day I learned what special meant, which seemed to really anchor the belief that something different about me. And more importantly, that there was something wrong with me. And that stuck with me for the longest period of time. And it really became the filter of my belief. You know, there's a book called The True Believer by Eric Hoffer, and he said something really profound. He said that in order for us to learn anything, it requires a certain degree of confidence. He said if you have too little confidence, then you think you can't learn. And if you have too much confidence, then you think you don't have to learn. See, I spent the first half of my life with too little confidence. I just thought it was impossible for me to learn. And since I was told that I was never going to get anywhere, I never expected to get anywhere. And guess where I went? Almost nowhere. Not for lack of trying. I mean, I worked hard to get good grades so I could prove I wasn't stupid. I got an appointment to the Air Force Academy and I ran marathons and I did some things. I did some things, but it never quieted the voice, the chanting. She's so dumb. She's so stupid. You know, at age 27, I had a little dream. Maybe you have a dream today. I had always been an entrepreneur. When I was a kid, I was the kid that had a business on the playground, right? Selling to kids things someone lost on the playground the previous day. I would sell gum, candy, all kinds of things. You know, at 11 back then, you could get your CPR card and take the Air Force base babysitting class. So I made good money with babysitting all the way through senior year. Senior year, we moved to upstate New York, and I discovered the lucrative business of collecting bottles. And at 27, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I had an idea of starting a church clothing boutique. You know, interesting people said, well, why did you pick a church clothing boutique? And here's the power of belief. The reason I picked a church clothing boutique, and this is sincere. Oh, I'm back. I don't know where I got cut off, so I'm just going to kind of start at the beginning of my story, okay? I was talking about the boutique. All right. All right. So at 27, I had a little sorry, let me get some tea. Oh, somebody dropped it in the chat. Dennis, I didn't even see it. Thank you, sir. Free application for federal student aid. Okay, so I only saw the comments in the chat 30 minutes too late. But you know what? At least we know now. I'll splice that into the FAFSA thing when we prep it for YouTube. All right, let me get back to this story. All right. So at 27, I had this dream. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I had an idea of starting a church clothing boutique. You know, interestingly, people were like, why did you pick a church clothing boutique? And here's the power of belief. The reason I picked a church clothing boutique, and this is sincere, any dummy could take orders from a catalog, pay for it with the money, and keep the rest. And no matter how much I had achieved in the Air Force up to that point, I still viewed myself as slow. None of the new data of success changed the perspective that I had about myself that was fed to me back at 5 years old. So I paid $20 for the catalog. I went up and down the highways to all my church meetings, taking sequin hats and frou-frou dress orders, and I went to build my dream. I expanded online and eventually opened a brick and mortar boutique in my basement. And boop, just like that, the world changed around me. All of a sudden, the ladies didn't dress their daughters in pageant dresses for church anymore. They didn't want the exclusive rhinestone hats anymore. They went to Walmart. So I knew I had to make a change. And I took my little volunteer effort that I've been doing with this newfangled thing called the internet. I had been designing websites for fun since they came out in the 90s. I create a business. Oh, I'm going to make it big. You know, this internet thing practically sells itself. Everybody wants a website. I was going to be big. I was going to make enough to get out of the Air Force and be a work from home mom, y'all. Business was booming too. So I wanted to learn how to expand, to stop doing the work, but just collect the checks. So I go to our county small business administration office, the SBA, and I learned about an organization called SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. It's a group through the SBA. And I thought I was doing a fabulous job making good money. And y'all, they wouldn't even assign me a mentor from SCORE because my business, as far as they were concerned, wasn't established enough. I remember putting together my business plan. Oh, yeah, I was going to show them I was worth their time, you know? So I put together this plan on how I was going to grow this business. And the SBA gal is like, you're going to have to work a lot harder than this to get a mentor. You don't understand your competitors. You say here the environment is rapidly changing and you have no path to expand. See, remember, back then you couldn't just hire programmers off the street, okay? HTML was new and few people knew how to do it. I walked away from that lady understanding that I had to put a whole lot more thought and a whole lot more work into this thing if I wanted it to grow. And how was I ever going to succeed when I couldn't even get a mentor? You know what? She was absolutely right. Despite all my hard work, and there was a lot of hard work, you know, like 18 hours a day, and that's on top of my military job. And I would go out during lunch and breakfast and and other breaks and try to find prospects and clients and programmers to work with me. If I had time to run home, I would log into our home network, update the codes and patch all the security risks for the websites. And then at night, baby on my hips, I'd design websites till 2 and 3 in the morning because I was managing a lot of websites. And so I was working really, really hard. But at a certain point, like the 3rd year, I got stuck. And I don't know if you've ever been stuck, but stuck stinks. And I was stuck. and I couldn't go beyond. Like I couldn't grow the business anymore if I had an opportunity to. If I picked up a client, it seemed like a week later I'd lose a client. If I got a really good programmer trained, they leave and go work for somebody else, and I'd be back at ground zero, starting all over again. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't get my business to grow. So I did something I've never done before. I began to read business books. I figured that somebody had written a book or recorded some kind of training or program that would help me grow my business. See, I still saw the problem as the business. I still saw the problem as the marketplace. I still saw the problem as the client or the economy. I never recognized that the problem was in the mirror, you know? So I found myself becoming a really avid student and reader in the field of human potential. And a lot of times when I'm presenting to live audiences, I like to joke that I've read everything from A to Z, right? From Anthony Robbins to Zig Ziglar. Uh, and that's true. I've read a bunch, but seeing all that reading, I just couldn't get the information to stick and help me make a change. I got motivated. Yeah, we're going to do this, but no permanent change. See, they were talking about motivation, but I was young. I was building websites and changing diapers and researching during early morning nursing. I was already a pretty motivated gal. I didn't need a kick in the pants to stay on the same track and go faster. What I needed was a completely new direction. I did not need motivation and hype. I needed some understanding, a better understanding of how to achieve. And part of the understanding that I received, I'm going to share with you in this series. And without a doubt in my mind, the understanding I received from the principles in this series literally changed my life and in every area of my life. We can hear somebody say that, right? That something changed their life. And almost as a passive listener, it becomes hard to believe unless you've experienced it. But I went from struggling in my business to building a six-figure business when I told it to one of my programmers in 2008. My income had skyrocketed. And the truth of the matter is, I always had the potential to build that business. I just lacked the awareness and belief and the principles that I'm going to share with you through this Power Principles program. See, I lacked the awareness of my potential. I lacked the belief in myself that I could actually do it. See, I saw potential in other people and other things, but never in myself. I put my belief in other people. And if I was ever going to accomplish anything, it had to be on borrowed belief because I had none of my own. And I didn't understand the principles within a learning model of achievement in building my business and ultimately life achievement. So my goal here for you is to share some of these principles in a really meaningful way, in an authentic way. And I'm not necessarily worried if I communicate perfectly, okay? What I want to do is connect with you. And I've purposely kept these lessons short, okay? Because I want you to be able to listen to them and get some real meat. And there's a lot of programs on the market today that have a lot of fluff. I've intentionally made this as much content rich as I possibly can. So this series of key power principles is not only going to transform your method of achieving your goals and dreams, but it's also going to shift your old traditional beliefs and judgments. Woo, that's good stuff, y'all. And I guarantee all of these power principles that we're going to cover, these power principles that we're going to cover over the fourth Thursdays, these power principles will shape your learned model of process of achievement, the life that you desire, the life that you deserve, and the life that is rightfully yours to claim. A fully rewarding and successful life. Each principle will open the door to a new awareness and guide you with daily practices that tear down the walls of limiting principles that have prevented you from your full achievement and that beautiful, successful life. The power principles will change your decision making, which will change your life as you see it and as you live it day to day. These principles will wash away your fears that you don't deserve or that you can't achieve your true desires. And these principles will enhance your visions beyond your wildest dreams. Success can and will be yours. So, why do I call these power principles? Well, I've learned and tested each of these principles through experience, and I personally formed a successful, rewarding life using them. And for me, that's powerful. And so let me help you understand the concept of power principles. Okay, so here's the concept. I've learned the way I've learned, how do I want to say it? Get some tea real quick. I'm kind of dry. Been talking football all night, prepping for somebody's new podcast and going off to college. I should have reserved some voice for the class tonight. So here's the concept. I've learned the way we do everything in our life is really based on a learning model that is created by our awareness, belief, and understanding that we have of these principles. These learning models are ultimately maintained or supported by our conditioning and our habits. The way we get dressed in the morning, the way we tie our shoes, the way we put our pants on, the way we drive our car, the way we make decisions, the way we interact with our loved ones and our coworkers, the way we make decisions about maintaining our body tempo, our eating habits, our physical activity. All of this operates through learning models. As I became aware of the understanding of why we do what we do and why we don't do some of the things that we really want to do, I realized that these learning models are based on three things. First, based on our level of awareness of our potential, the awareness of the opportunities right in front of us, awareness of maybe future pitfalls, obstacles, or challenges that we face in our lives. For most of our lifetimes, we were programmed to believe that we had to be in the right place at the right time if we were going to win. I found that to be a lie because I know in my life, and perhaps you've experienced this too, in my life, there have been some times where I was smack dab in the middle of exactly the right place at exactly the right time. And while everybody else around me was winning, I was losing. See, it's not just about being in the right place at the right time. We're always in the right place at the right time. It's about having the awareness of your potential while you're there. See, I have found that without awareness of our potential, we can absolutely be in the right place at the right time and not see the opportunities right in front of us. And once you begin to master the principles within a learning model of achievement, you will find that even if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you can still win because the potential for winning is with you always. Now, you can find people who are saying that currently we're in a down economy, a down market. This is the wrong time to grow a business or take a risk. And while everybody else is playing it safe, as you expand your awareness of your potential, then your self belief, and as you begin to apply these principles, you're going to find you can win regardless of the conditions and circumstances around you. So, as you will see, it has very little to do with being in the right place at the right time. And it has everything with being aware of your potential. It has everything to do with being aware of your potential, belief in your ability to do it, and to master the principles that I'm going to share with you throughout this entire series. The second component, excuse me, the second component of a learning model is based on our current level of belief. What do you really believe that you're capable of achieving in your life? In Dr. Maxwell Maltz's phenomenal book, Psycho-Cybernetics, he clearly states that a person does not get what it is they want in their life. That what they get in their life is what they think they are capable of achieving, what they believe. He says that a person does not outperform their own self-image. And you see, that's what happened to me. The reason I was stuck wasn't because of the economy. It wasn't because of my customers. It had nothing to do with the programmers. What happened was I had reached the level of self-belief. I had never believed myself worthy or capable of outperforming that. Rather, my belief was that I was too dumb to deeply understand anything. Despite the degrees, this followed me. Despite the accomplishments, I could never shake it. So I sabotaged every opportunity to grow, and I never amounted to anything until I learned to change that belief, that self-image, as I expanded my awareness of my potential and I began to apply these principles. So how we do everything is really based on a learning model. And that learning model, again, is based on our awareness and our current beliefs. And within each learning model, there are principles we must master to call that learning model successful. See, even if we expand our awareness, even if we have belief, if we don't learn to master the principles within the model we're developing, then we develop a learning model of failure. Let me give you an example of learning of excuse me. While I think about it, this is Maxwell Maltz's book up here. Think and Grow Rich, Psycho-Cybernetics. I should drop a link to that if I remember, I'll drop a link to that. If I don't remember, somebody put it in the comments so I don't forget to drop a link to that for you. All right, let me one more sip. I meant for these lessons to be like half an hour each, and this one's already going on 20 minutes. So, and I think I'm like 2/3 done. But these power principles they're so important and essential to changing from where you've been, the results you've been getting, to the results you want to get. So let's go ahead and get this example. Let me give you an example of a learning model that I think we can all relate to. There was probably in your time in your life where you had a really strong desire. Did I say that? You know what? Maybe I'm sorry, y'all. I'm getting a little woozy here because I'm trying to slow down. Y'all know I'm a fast talker. I'm trying to slow down and put like they say, put the cookies on the bottom shelf. Stop sounding like a used car salesman. Let me go back and say that again. All right. So I'm going to give you third time's a charm. Let me give you an example of a learning model that I think we can all relate to. Okay. There was probably a time in your life where you had a really strong desire to ride a bicycle, but your learning model at that time was probably a learning model of failure. You got on by yourself and you probably fell. Part of this failure is because you lacked the awareness and understanding of your potential and all the principles within the learning model of riding a bike. You lack the belief in your ability to ride the bike, even though you saw your sister or your brother or a neighbor or a friend ride the bike. And in order for that learning model of failure to be transformed to a learning model where you're now successfully riding a bike, several things had to happen. First, there was a coach or mentor. That was probably your mom or dad or an older brother or a sister who stood beside you while you sat on the bike. Then they began to expand your awareness of your potential. They began to share with you a few beliefs. They began to share with you a new belief that you can actually do it. You, in effect, borrowed their belief. Then they started to teach you about some of the principles of riding the bike with the next learning model. They probably talked to you about balance and hand-eye coordination and muscle dexterity. And as they stood beside you on the bike and ran beside you as you pedaled and pushed, and then they let you go, and chances are you fell. But you recognize that you did pedal 1 or 2 times. And although you didn't fully believe you could do it, you decided to act on the borrowed belief of your coach or mentor. So you got back on the bike. And again, they began to expand your understanding of the principles, helped you gain an awareness of your potential, that you could really do it, and you borrowed their belief. They showed you what you did wrong. They encouraged you to do it better, and they helped you master the principles. Each time in the process of failing, falling, getting back on the bike, you expanded your awareness of your potential. You gained a better understanding of the principles, and you changed your limiting belief that said, you can do this, to I can do this. Now, for most of us, in a very short period of time, we learned how to ride a bike, and that learning model still sticks with us for the rest of our lives. And as I've had the privilege and opportunity of traveling and working all over the world with very successful individuals from all walks of life, and fields of endeavor. I've looked at their lives. I've been very curious about what are the principles within the learning model for their life achievement. What is it these people had that seemingly others lacked? Then I came to realize they were operating with key principles, and that's why I call these power principles. Take a look at your life. Look at the areas of your life where you've been really successful. You're going to find these 10 principles were properly applied in your life in that area. I intend to show you with the Power Principles series how to change your learned behavior and any limiting self-judgments that you may have brought with counterfeit thoughts. The illustration I give you about riding a bike, it's a basic understanding. But what about something bigger, something greater than just riding a bike without training wheels? What about creating a learning model of achievement for your entire life? What would it be like to change your entire life so that you were living your ultimate dream? And now that takes us to a whole dimension, a whole new learned process. Ask yourself, am I really ready for this? Am I really, really ready? See, once we self-author or create a mental model of perfection that we want for our lives, that becomes the first process for us to reach our goal. You know, for me in my life earlier, it never occurred to me that I could even change my life. For years, I remained stuck. My learning model and belief said if I was to be successful in business, I needed to have that advanced understanding that others had. And then my awareness of my potential based on that belief produced a result. I was slow. My learning model, my belief and awareness said it takes money to make money. Well, I didn't have any money to make any money, and as a result, I was broke. My learning model based on my belief and awareness said it's better to be safe than sorry. So I didn't dare take a bet on myself. I was way too much of a risk. The truth is, in order for any of us to achieve success in life, it requires risk. So my result was I settled for less in every area of my life. Part of my learning model said that I had to play the hand I was dealt based on my awareness and belief. So it never occurred to me that I could change my life. And perhaps you've been told that too. I found out it's not true. I found out that not only can we throw the hand we were dealt back into the center of the table, but if we choose to gain understanding, expand our awareness of our potential, and move beyond the convictions of our limiting belief, if we begin to study and gain an understanding of the power principles in our life, we can become the dealer of the cards in our own life. This adventure is not a fishing trip where you're equipped with all the gear, all the necessary gear, but you have no guarantee of catching a fish, only a hope. This is a journey that begins with understanding that you, as an individual, are truly equipped with all the necessary gear, all the resources necessary to co-create a life beyond the condition and circumstances that you find yourself in. It is nothing to do with hope and everything to do with belief. Let me say that again. It has nothing to do with hope and everything to do with belief. This is your chance for all of us. We get one chance here on earth. Remember, this is not a dress rehearsal. We have been gifted with all the resources to create the life you truly want and deserve. And it was my intention in creating this series and my highest hope for you to gain a deeper understanding of these truths within each of these principles and gain a fortitude, faith, and belief in your ability to create your authentic, successful, rewarding life. Believe in yourself and believe in your ability to achieve. You have mastered many individual challenges in your lifetime. Now it's the time to master your life. And this is why I believe the first principle is understanding. In Proverbs 3:13, it says, "Blessed is the man who finds wisdom, the man who gains understanding." See, there's a difference between knowing and wisdom. There's a lot of people in our lives who say they know something, and all of us know how to do better. We all know how to do better things, myself included. I know that if I sit on the couch and eat Ben and Jerry's Cherry Garcia ice cream every night, that is not going to help me reach my life achievement of personal health. But there were times in my life where I sat on the couch every single night and I ate Ben and Jerry's. So we don't always do what we know. And most salespeople know that if they simply ask for referrals and stay connected with their prospects and customers, they'll increase their sales. But they don't always do what they know. Most people know in relationships with our loved ones that if we started our day and ended our day looking into the eyes of those people who are most important in our lives and telling them that we love them, that we care about them, and how significant they are to us, that those relationships would deepen. But we don't always do what we know. It's been said that the largest gap in our life is the gap between that which we know and that which we do. And I believe the bridge between the gap of knowing and doing is understanding. When we know something, that's a process typically of gathering information, like we were taught to do in school. Read, remember, repeat. Read, remember, repeat. And then we can say we know because we answered a whole bunch of number of questions on the quiz, and we've answered a certain number of questions on that quiz, and we prove we know. But understanding requires internalizing the knowledge, stepping out and acting on the knowledge, understanding the change in the feedback of our results and the conditions, circumstances in our environment, and then making the necessary adjustments in that process. All of my study has convinced me that the only way we gain true understanding of anything is through a two-step process of study and application. And that's what you'll be doing in this Power Principles series. You'll study each of these principles and become emotionally involved with them. You'll do what my mentor Zig Ziglar said, a checkup from the neck up with each of these principles. You can evaluate each of the principles in relationship to your own life. And then with each principle, I will share some simple things you can do to apply that understanding to your life. So you will see what begins to change in your life from that experience. You can ask yourself, how do I apply this principle in new learning? To what area of my life? How does this change my condition? How does this change my circumstances? What is the feedback that I've gotten from this? Sometimes we define the feedback as failure. Sometimes we define the feedback as success. The truth is, it's neither success nor failure. It's feedback. It's feedback that allows us to reevaluate and make necessary adjustments, and then to take the next step forward in our life. If I've learned anything through my understanding of these principles, it's that the conditions and circumstances of our life can never and will never predict what's possible in our lives. And you're probably going to hear me say that when I teach every one of these principles. The conditions and circumstances of our lives can never and will never predict what's possible for your life. This is why we've been gifted with imagination, our ability to co-create that mental model of perfection beyond the limiting circumstances and conditions we find ourselves in. And we can do that and project that into a fuller expansion of our lives. And as far as we know it, in this entire universe, you and I are the only beings, the only creatures, the only beings that have been gifted with this power of imagination. This power to create a life beyond our conditions and circumstances. You're not going to drive down a road in Wisconsin and pass a field of cows and see one of the cows jump on the fence post and say to the other cows, "Hey, listen, you know what? We don't have to be cows anymore. We can be giraffes or kangaroos. We can be dogs. We don't have to just be cows." See, they don't have the ability to change their lives. You and I, every single moment of every single day, we have been gifted with that ability to change. And for me, for so many years, I didn't believe that. I wasn't aware of my potential, and I didn't understand the principles of how to do it. See, when we say, I can no longer accept this for my life, that's in the rest of the 10 power principles I'm going to share with you. It's that process of understanding, that moment of, I can't accept this anymore in my life. That's when we begin to co-create. That's when we begin to work with the power that I define as God. Now, some of you may Some of you may refer to the source of our creation in other ways. Someone the other day quipped that God stand for Grand Overall Designer. But you're going to hear me in this series define that creator source as God the Creator. And I've come to know this, that there is a power that we can co-create our lives with. And when we expand our awareness of our infinite true potential in Him, when we challenge the conviction of our old limiting beliefs and replace them with new empowering beliefs, when we use the imagination and the creative power that God bred into us when He created us in His image, when we gain a true understanding of who we are and most importantly, whose we are, and apply the power principles in our life, we will never again be held in the field of limitation of what we currently have and see for our lives. Oh, I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the series. This has been JJ Conway. I want you to walk in abundance and leave a legacy. Oh, wait, before I go. Y'all, I love that teaching. And I was like, woo, we finally got through it. Only 10 minutes longer than I anticipated. But wait, don't go yet. For those who joined us later, because I seem to have a different crowd that was talking about the FAFSA than the ones who stayed on to talk about the power principle. I just want to let everybody know I haven't turned my one-on-one coaching yet. Okay. I'm still sliding through the doctorate, got to get the kids into college, all the healing, all the burials, all the things, right? But I did bring back my group coaching. And so if you're on my mailing list, then you got an email today about tonight's class, and there were links at the bottom, group coaching, and get on the apply for the wait list for the one-on-one as I slowly open it back up, one person at a time. But I want to tell you about the group coaching. Every first Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central, so that's noon Eastern, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific, okay? I will be live via Zoom to answer any questions you have. You'll also get lesson drops on many of the weeks that we're not in session. From time to time, I'll open up office hours, and then you'll get invitations to private random recordings. So random recordings, if you haven't been with me very long, random recording day is whenever I need to fix something or correct something, or I need to catch up on some deep dives or things for my paid clients. And so I invite my audience to come in and be an audience for those recordings, because it always makes it better when you've got feedback, right? And so even the people who benefit from buying those courses, or who have already paid for the courses, or who've already paid for coaching, and they're in the program, it makes them feel better about their situation. Maybe they couldn't be there live, but then they see that you had the same aha moments, and they see that you had the same realizations, and they see that you had the same struggles. And then they're like, wow, I'm not alone. We're all in this together. All you have to do to sign up is go to jjclink.com/group, and you can register for that. It's going to help you dump debt, build wealth, and prosper. Now, for real, that's all I have for you today. I'm JJ Conway, and you can find me on social media at JJ Knows the Way. Now, the only reason I can say that I know the way is because I'm holding on tight to the one who is the way. And if you want greater abundance and peace, reach out to me today. Y'all take care and be blessed.